Welcome everybody to the War and Peace Baseball Podcast. I'm here today with Alex Rudy and Ray Estrada. I'm Alex Uwe, and here we go, guys. It's baseball season. Thank God, it's been way too long. You guys been enjoying some baseball so far?
I've loved all the baseball that's going on right now.
It's good to be back.
Yeah, it would be much more ideal if everybody's teams were off to the great starts that they wanted, and Gary Sanchez hit 4 home runs in the first 3 games of the season. But that has not happened. We'll let you know about all the stuff that has happened, let you know about all the things going down, and we will also be giving our awards predictions and a few other predictions for the season. I know we're a couple days late for that, but if you're willing to give us a pass on that one, we will. I mean, it's 3 days in the season. How much could be decided at that point? So, we will be bringing all of that to you. Let's start with some of the opening day headlines. Opening day, there was the 3 games on Sunday, and then Monday was the real big opening day. Sunday was a lot of fun. The 3 games on Sunday were like equally as entertaining as all the games on Monday, in my opinion. The highlight of that whole day had to be Madison Bumgarner's 2 home run game, right? Like, any argument there?
No, not really.
Like,
that was dope as fuck, honestly. It was a great way to begin the season.
They weren't like cheap Arizona fly ball home runs.
Those are jacks. Those are no doubters.
212 mile an hour exit velocity homers. Only Giancarlo Stanton has achieved that feat in a single game. So that's some pretty good company right there. Madbum equals Giancarlo Stanton. Madgum. But actually though, like there's a lot to talk about with, even if we're just looking at the teams from that first day, the Giants and Diamondbacks. Like, the Giants ended up losing that game. The Diamondbacks have been taking it to the Giants a little bit in this series. I think they won the series today, right? The Diamondbacks just beat them today.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of concerns with, obviously with the Diamondbacks, and we'll get into that a little bit, but, the Giants, Melanson blew that first save. I'm not reading much into that, but, a lot of the other elements of that team, like the rest of their bullpen still seems really shaky, really weak. The starting pitching depth is probably not as good as it needs to be for, a team with a pretty dominant top end with Bumgarner and Cueto. So I'm curious to hear about, like, your outlook on the Giants this season. They were a team that spent some money. They were very favorable in that division, as they always are.
Yeah, I think they were up in the division because the bottom 3 teams aren't very good. But I mean, as a Giants fan, I would be concerned. I don't read too much into the Melanson blown save, but you don't want your big profile closer. Oh, he's gonna help. He's going to not blow saves for us. Opening day, he blows the saves against the Diamondbacks of all teams.
Good teams and like dynasties, as good as the Giants are managed well when they are, generally good there as signing free agents and promoting players, et cetera, et cetera. They eventually come to an end. I'm not saying this is this year, but I mean, you eventually regress. And while I'm not trying to say overreaction, you just say they're not going to make the playoffs, so it's a poor year for them, I don't think this is a team anymore where you can expect them every year to be a automatic World Series contender. I'm not saying they can't be considered one at all, but I don't know if they're quite, a guaranteed even year. Not that it's an even year, but, the even year type of Giants that they were at one point.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with
with much of the same players. So that makes sense.
Because the core of that dynasty is still there.
The series to the Diamondbacks, this team sucks. So I'm not trying to be that reaction. I'm just saying I don't think this team. I think this team is already peaked. Is really what I'm trying to make the point. I don't think it's going to reach that. I don't think this current core is ever going to reach that same incredible level of play. I think.
Yeah, I would say the same. I think they're going to be an interesting team to watch. Maybe not even just because of, Crawford and Belt and Bumgarner and Posey, those core guys. I think they're interesting with a lot of the deeper players that they have there. Like Nunez is going to be a player I'm really interested in. this year, because he had a really good year last year for a team that didn't matter for most of the season. And I think that can have a really big impact. Like, he's very versatile, and he was a guy that really looked like he was going nowhere until, he actually got regular time with the Twins every day. So, he's one of those guys
Their
that I'm looking
lineup,
at.
there's so little this team scares me. The lineup especially it just doesn't scare me. I mean, there's great players, but I mean,
Like, scare you concern-wise, or like scare you as an opponent team?
like if I'm as an opponent.
Madbum's pretty scary.
That's one. I mean, obviously we've seen what he can take you to a World
Hunter
Series
Pence
victory.
is pretty
but,
scary in the right light. Just the way he looks.
I just don't know if this team has enough this year.
I can definitely see Hunter Pence scaring some people. Not necessarily on the field, but just in general. Yeah. So there were obviously other baseball games going on. Sorry. Before that, I definitely did want to mention the Diamondbacks and Zach Greinke, who didn't look very good in that opening day game either. You can't really read in too much in, the first outings of the season, but, there is something different. Like, the way he's pitching with that lowered velocity, it seems like he's laboring a lot more earlier on in games, and it seems like he's struggling to locate as a result of that. And, he wasn't good last year, so we expect him to be better than he was, but I don't know how much better. So that's the tricky thing for me, is I don't know how much is going to be different with Zach Greinke. Just for that reason. Like, there's a clear difference in his stuff, and it's not just, he had a rough outing, but everything else looks promising. And I think you have to be careful with that distinction, looking at a lot of the starts earlier on in these first few games of the season. If you guys want, we can talk about that now. There really were a lot of starting pitchers that got roughed up on this opening week here. One of the ones that hurts a little bit more is Masahiro Tanaka, who after an insanely dominant spring he gave up 7 runs in less than 3 innings or something. Obviously not what you're looking for, but again, it was a little bit different. The stuff wasn't different. Like, it wasn't concerning in any way. Like, he got roughed up. And
I just want to say to Greinke, I know you moved on, but I think you can question his motivation at this point. I mean, does he really have anything to make him give it his all every year, except for just being a pro athlete? I mean, I don't want to just say, his mental issues automatically equal poor motivation at all, but he is a guy who's had the yip type issues before. I think with nothing really to play for in Arizona and all that cash, I don't know if he's really putting the work he was, let's say, 2 or 3 years ago when he was reestablishing himself as a Cy Young caliber pitcher.
Yeah. I think it's a fair point to make.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, because Diamondbacks aren't real close right now, and like you said, when he was on the Dodgers and he had stuff to play for, and he wanted to get more money. Now he has his money, he doesn't have much to play for, so
he just never came off to me personally as a very competitive guy, or at least in the way that, like, a team competitive guy. Maybe for his own motives, but I've just never felt that Madbum's the kind of... I mean, not Madbum, sorry. Obviously, Madbum is the guy. But Greinke is the guy who, like, puts the team on his back, wants to be the leader and wants to carry a young core like the Diamondbacks to
it is not Zach Greinke.
Yeah, it's not his personality at all. So his struggles were honestly, I think, not quite predictable, but definitely... I don't think anyone's been too shocked by it, to be quite honest.
Yeah, I like that. That's some good next level deep analysis of a player beyond just what he does on the field. Like, I think we need a little bit more of that. It's hard to read into players because we don't know them, obviously, but it's something to think about. It's definitely interesting. I'll get back on to what I was talking about with the rough starts for a lot of these pitchers here. Jose Quintana gave up 3 home runs in his first start against the Tigers, which is something he didn't do until like June of last season, which giving up his 3rd home run. So that was a little bit strange. Darvish and Kluber in Texas, kind of got hit around a bit. Rougned Odor really went to town on Corey Kluber. That was really interesting to watch. But Darvish was like really wild, walked 5 batters. there's a lot going on, and there's a lot that we want to break down, and a lot that we want to make decisions about going forward. But in reality, we can't come up with conclusions about all these pitchers. We can look at certain things that we've seen, and we can tell you how we feel that's going to affect them going forward. But for the most part, I can't read into it at all. They're fresh off spring training, and these are the first games that matter. It's just it happens every year. You can't expect anything, really. That's what I've learned. You can't expect anything in the first week.
Except for the unexpected.
Yep.
You can expect the unexpected. I'll allow that. Yeah. Do you guys have any more comments on like the any pitchers that you've seen that really concerned you, or you think that are going to bounce back, or any pitchers that you've liked that surprised you a lot?
I think if we're talking about like bounce back guys, Chris Archer had a good outing.
Yeah, I don't think anybody was real for considering that really inflated ERA. Chris Archer was probably one of the safer starting pitcher picks going into the season. Just like nobody's really concerned about this guy. He had a great WBC tournament too. So,
but I mean, for Tanaka, I saw a thing. His opening day stats aren't very good.
Yeah, Yankees, I saw that too.
It's like a 9-something ERA on opening day. That isn't good.
Oh, it's way more than 9. Are you kidding me? We can do some quick math if you want. 7 earned runs in 2 1/3 inning, I want to say.
I think you meant for his
over
career.
the last 3 years.
Over the last 3 years.
Yeah.
I like again. I don't really care about that.
On opening day, he's been the opening day starter the last 3 years. Obviously, it's way higher this year.
With Tanaka, it feels like just yesterday that Yankees signed him. It's crazy. Yeah. Anyway, reminiscing about the Masahiro Tanaka of old. Yeah, but I'll go back to Darvish. The walks are the one stat that I look at early in the season, and that's just kind of like to see the kind of feel they have. If a pitcher's getting hit hard early on, that doesn't necessarily mean that there's a problem with them. But if they're not able to find the strike zone, they're not able to find that rhythm, then that's something that I feel like takes a little more time to adjust. So when you see those inflated walk numbers early on, that's the kind of thing that concerns me a bit more. But there were a lot of pitching performances that I did that definitely opened eyes. Clayton Richard for the Padres, obviously that was really impressive. 8 innings against the Dodgers, shutout baseball. But people are gonna be like, oh, that was it was a fluky outing, and it probably was. But he had a really strong end to the last half of last season. I'm gonna try to find some numbers on that. But there's these little things that you pick up on early on, because every year there's players that they're that are either on the radar and sometimes make that jump to really good relevant players, and then there's those players that start off the radar that kind of jump onto the radar early in the season. And then that's when things start picking up and getting interesting, and you start seeing these new faces that, are going to be a lot more relevant than you thought. I don't know if anybody was able to follow what I just said right there. How are you guys doing?
Nope. Where am I?
What year is it?
Future.
Yeah.
Future.
Oh, I love it. We need more SpongeBob references on the show. I've decided. I think that
always.
We need
like legitimate like sound bites on the show.
We need more. Yeah, well, we're definitely a little bit behind in that category. But I'm trying to simplify what I said a little bit. There's guys that really aren't good that become okay, and then there's guys that are okay that become good, and that happens every season, right? Like we've seen it. I would say like an easy example of last season was James Paxton, who went from that kind of off the radar guy who was pretty relevant because of injuries and whatever in recent times, and then opened a lot of eyes and became kind of that relevant pitcher, an okay pitcher by most people's standards. And now everybody's waiting for him to make that next step to become a good pitcher. You know what
Yeah,
I
I would
mean?
just say a lot of guys regress the other way too. I'd say a lot of guys start off very hot and cool down or break out first and then kind of regress to the previous. Things even out in baseball.
Yeah, and I agree with that 100%. But what we look at as fans and as viewers, we want to see the guys that are gonna make that jump, and we want to see it early because then you're like, oh, I knew this early on. I've been watching this guy. I like this guy. I believed in this guy early on, and I was right. And then you have all the bragging rights, and then you win at life, basically.
It's definitely how it works.
That's in that order every time. That is how it works. If you want to be good at life, be good at predicting baseball players. And yeah, I mean, there's not much more to talk about there. I mean, it's so hard to determine guys that are ready to make the next step. I mean, another guy I'll throw out there that maybe you guys can give your opinions on is Lance McCullers, who is a young player who was really impressive, dealt with injuries a lot last year, but definitely looked like he was back on pace again this year to possibly be a top-of-the-rotation guy. What were your thoughts on that?
Well, my opinion on McCullers is that every time it seems he goes out, he puts out decent to really good numbers. It's just the injuries. It's not he hasn't thrown up like terrible numbers consistently. It's just that he doesn't stay in the field well enough. So if he stays healthy, he's got the stuff, and he's shown that he can be a top of the rotation guy for the Astros.
Yeah, I think he's a really prime. I don't know if breakout's the right term because he already kind of broke out once, but maybe bounce back candidate. And I think everyone who kind of follows baseball closely can agree is that if things go his way, he definitely has the ability to be an ace for the Astros.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to give anybody kind of the benefit of the doubt, it's going to be a guy that young. Like, a lot of the injuries that he dealt with weren't like serious red flags that are going to affect him the rest of his career necessarily. So there's always that to think about as well. Yeah, I mean, there's no other pitching performances necessarily that jump off the page for me. Carlos Martinez actually was probably the best performance of any of these opening games here. Like, that was really impressive. Not even just from the stat line, but the stuff he was cranking out. 100-mile-an-hour fastballs followed by filthy, like, high 80s changeups were. He was on top of his game and on a pretty big stage. Like, Cubs Cardinals in the Sunday Night Baseball game on opening day is probably about as close to the postseason as you can get in the regular season, probably, right? Like,
on opening day.
In terms of environment, anyway. So yeah, I liked that a lot. Yeah, and just any other players, anything else that stood out to you from opening day, or I keep saying opening day, like opening days we'll call it, because that's what it is at this point. We're a few days into the season now.
Nope.
Really boring.
I'll
keep throwing you guys bones if you want to try to get the ball rolling.
Yes, please.
Edwin Encarnacion, you like him with the Indians? He had a nice.
I liked his parrot celebration that he continued.
Yeah, he had a nice game-tying home run in the first game there. The Indians actually swept the Rangers in a few games where they came back from behind. Again, you can't say enough about this Indians team. You can't underrate them anymore. They've definitely made the acquisitions that they needed, I feel. Like, that is a really complete-looking team. Their starting pitching has looked really good earlier on. I mean, again, rough outings, I'm not looking at that. I'm looking at the health of their pitchers, and all their guys are going right now. And they've looked, for the most part, like themselves. They haven't been throwing shutouts every game, but they're all there. Carrasco and Salazar were huge pieces that were missing in the postseason for them, and they seem to be rolling right now with the Indians. So I think that is really the team to look at. Like, obviously one of the top teams in the AL going into the season, but there's just so much to like about the team. They're definitely like close to the Cubs level of just impressive roster and impressive makeup,
Yeah, I mean, they have to be the clear favorite in the AL this year. You can't disrespect them. They're not. There's no reason to expect them to be a fluky team. I would say, if anything, they should be better. And they honestly remind me a lot of that Royals team that made back-to-back World Series. I would say, but I think they, could really make this into a long-lasting, a period of success as compared to that team, which kind of peaked for 2 years and then kind of fell back to mediocrity. I think, Francona, in my opinion, you could really make the case of the best manager in the major league. I'm not saying he clearly is, but I think you could argue it. I think he's fantastic. I like that this ownership is willing to spend money and make trade away prospects when they see the results. I think aggressive ownership is something you don't really see enough in baseball. I think it's the one thing the sport really lacks compared to other sports, other major sports. So I'm really excited to see what this team can do. I mean, the sky's really the limit, and they still have a decent amount of young prospects that they can continue to promote, and we'll see what the season has in store for them.
And what are your thoughts on one of their possibly biggest additions that was technically on their payroll last year, Michael Brantley? They got him back after basically missing all of last season with that shoulder issue. And what are your thoughts on his health going forward? Because I'm not 100% sold yet. Because people are saying, oh, he looks good, he looks fine. But, I think people were saying the same thing last year, and then kind of out of nowhere, the shoulder kind of started bugging him again, and then next thing you know, he's out for the season again. And I'm not ready to commit after one series to Michael Brantley. But, some people are really excited. Where do you guys stand on him? He's a really interesting player.
It's like you said last year, they said, I'm going back to my fantasy demons from last year. People said, oh no, that shoulder injury, once he comes back, he'll be fine, and then he'll have his production up again. And then it's like, he played 2 games, he's got issues with his shoulder again, then he's out. So you can't really trust when they say he feels good, because he could just as easily turn around and have more issues. So I don't trust him at this point.
Yeah, I would say he has a lot to prove, honestly, before anyone can make any guaranteed prediction about him. He was a decently injury-prone player even before these major injuries. And I don't know, it's not a guy I have a lot of confidence in, honestly, as much as I would love to see him bounce back. There's just a lot of variables seem to be not in his favor, but that's not to say he can't come back to what he was, I think, 2 years ago, when he was one of the best players in baseball. I think that sheer level might be gone, but I think he can still be, very good outfielder, but I wouldn't bet on it. Guys have done it before, but the shoulder injury I would say, is the worst place to get hurt as a batter. You guys might disagree, in my opinion. The most, if you really look at the guys who you totally lose it are offensively are guys who have shoulder injuries. So, I mean, I'm rooting for the guy. I think he's a great player, and he was super underrated when he was at his peak in 2015, 2014. But it's hard to really make any guaranteed prediction that he's just coming back automatically, even if he is healthy. Sometimes with those shoulder injuries, even if you are healthy, technically, you just lost something you can never gain back. I mean, Ryan Zimmerman on the Nationals is a great example. I don't know if you guys know who Sean Green is. He's kind of a throwback, but he went from hitting 40 plus home runs. Adrian Gonzalez is a good example. He went from MVP caliber baseball to a good player, but really nowhere near that level ever again. So, yeah, that's pretty much my take on it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, honestly, I'd feel a lot safer when I see the power stroke kind of come back, because Michael Brantley's not a power hitter, but you kind of want that 15 to 20 home run power. You expect it kind of from that kind of player even. So, that's kind of what I'm looking for there. There were speaking of power, there's some other majestic home runs hit early on in the season. Joey Gallo hit a ball to fucking China yesterday. It was one of the farthest, it's got to be one of the most impressive home runs that I've ever seen, just in terms of how high it went and how freaking far it went. And also, Carlos Correa hit one out of Minute Maid too, just down the line. Like, these are some really impressive upside guys. I mean, there's some other home runs out there. Actually, there have been a lot of home runs out there. There's been about the same at this time as there were last season. Obviously, 3 games into the season, can't read much into that. But it does seem like the power trend is for sure going to be a thing this season again, because that's just how the new age of hitters is. Hit for power, get your contract, and that's about it, because it freaking works for a lot of people, a lot of players out there. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, we've seen a lot of, batting averages plummet in order to sacrifice for that extra power.
We're definitely in the high strikeout, high power era, which is interesting. I think it is good for the game, honestly, entertainment-wise, because I think strikeouts and home runs are the most are part of the most entertaining parts of baseball. I mean, obviously, the web gems are great too, but I'd say just kind of the bread and butter of baseball is strikeouts and home runs. And I think it's great for the game, when it's kind of fighting to stay as relevant as it used to be. But I also think it's just, I don't know if I like it personally as a diehard baseball fan. I kind of think, I don't know, I don't find it as aesthetically appealing.
It's not as aesthetically pleasing.
Well, it's not good. It's not as good of, I don't want to say it's not good baseball, but it's just not like the baseball I think I grew up thinking of, like the ideal baseball, if that even makes sense. It's not like the romanticized
utopian baseball
type of baseball that like I kind of envision peak baseball. That I know it's like really going out there, but like I think like maybe like when we grew up, we grew up post steroid era where the offense was trying to kind of recover and catch up, and it was kind of on like a decline for a while, and so it's interesting to see this kind of response to, I think, what was a generally low power era for a while there.
Yeah, I mean, I love home runs as much as the next guy, but it's also kind of weird to see these guys, like, I get that they're trying to hit for power, but, every single swing is just this giant, enormous hack. It doesn't matter what the situation is at all. Like, I understand situational hitting, like I've played in, like, some of us, we've played this game enough to know kind of the basics of situational hitting, and it doesn't take a freaking baseball genius to know that if you have a runner on third in less than an out, you should probably try to get that run in any way possible, and it doesn't have to be a freaking monster home run into the bleachers. So that's kind of the shift for me that's a little bit concerning. It's like, I'm all for guys adapting to get this power swing. Get paid. Power pays money. I mean, maybe a little less than it did before, just because there's so much of it now. But that is what is going to make you an intimidating player, and in a lot of cases a successful player. But I think I kind of wish that some of these players would just adapt to kind of learn how to cut down their swing at the right times. Like, if you're in a really big situation and you have runners on base and you need to drive in that winning run, I feel like a power hitter should be able to slap a ball the other way for one at bat, just to help that team out in that one situation. It doesn't have to be every time. It doesn't mean like get yourself out in order to move a runner over and stuff like that. I'm completely against sacrificing outs in terms of moving runners up on the bases. That's just stupid to me. But if the opportunity's there and like the situation calls for it, these players don't even know, they can't comprehend how to even do that at this point. And that's the kind of thing that makes me scratch my head. It's like, you're a freaking baseball player who's been playing his entire life, and you know how big this situation is, and you won't freaking take your single to the opposite field. Like what the hell is wrong with you? Like, it's I don't know if it's stubbornness or what. It's something though, I
strongly agree with that. Like, it seems almost selfish, to be honest, I would say.
Yeah, and I'm all for that. Get those stats up, get paid, because that's what their job is. Like, their job is to help their team win, but their job is also to get the best contract they can to support their families and all that too.
Absolutely.
Like, I'll acknowledge that. And, when no one's on base, take your fucking hack. Take your strikeouts, too. I don't really care. I don't think a strikeout's worse than, a ground out in the infield in any way, shape, or form. But it's kind of amazing that they don't even know how to get away from that when the time calls for it. I feel like I'm getting redundant. I've said it a lot, but that's just how I feel about that. And I think a lot of people are kind of feeling the same way. So, yeah, I don't know. We've talked about plenty with the opening day headlines. One more little thing that I wanted to kind of throw in there was the intentional walk rule that's been implemented so far. There have been some really funny, awkward situations early on already that, batters just seem really confused. Like they had no idea that this new rule was implemented. They're like, "What? I go that way towards first base now? Like right now? I haven't even hit yet." Like it's been really funny. I don't know. Like, and then the first baseman are talking to the batters like, I don't know. Like this is just the new thing, I guess. It definitely seems really unnatural, and I think that's another.
I hate it.
It's another negative to that.
I absolutely hate it. There was two in the opening day Dodger game. One was to Yasiel Puig just to get Kershaw up, and Puig walks up and they're like, "Oh, you're in first base," and like he said, it's like, "Okay," and then he awkwardly walks to first base. And it's like, but then the other one, they got down 2-0 on Adrian Gonzalez, and they decided, yeah, just put him on.
Yeah, what do you do what is your reaction as a batter if you're in the middle of the bat, ready to zone in on your pitch, and then they're just like, "Yeah, go now." You don't even have to
kills the flow of the game.
Yeah, I think it kills the flow of the game more than throwing 4 pitches that could possibly
without a doubt
something.
Yeah, and like another thing, I'm gonna go ahead and say that I got this almost entirely from Harold Reynolds on MLB Tonight in the last couple days, but he mentioned that the pitcher throwing an intentional walk throws him out of his rhythm, and I feel like
I agree 100%.
That should this new rule takes that out of the equation entirely, but the pitcher should have to pay that price if you want to put a batter on base, in my opinion. Like, you don't want to challenge this guy. Well, the penalty for that should have to be throwing 4 pitches that he cannot hit and throwing yourself out of your rhythm of throwing strikes 90, 95 miles an hour in the strike zone. And, you eliminate that entirely. And it was a really good point. I'd never even thought of that. But that is, a really good point that was made. So, there's a lot of ways to read into this, even though it is such a minor rule. But, it definitely doesn't seem like it's publicly perceived in a positive way, from what I've seen.
Well, like when they first announced the rule change, whatever that Russell Martin article came out, they were saying, so you have Miguel Cabrera up in the bottom of the 9th, and he's the winning run. Instead of having to throw 4 pitches, albeit intentionally out of the strike zone, and probably all going to be out of the strike zone and miss, you still have to throw 4 pitches to Miguel Cabrera. Now you don't. Now you can just put him on. And it's just absurd.
Mm-hmm. He also said that might as well not even round the bases on a home run, which Josh Donaldson actually did in a minor league rehab game this spring. I found that freaking hilarious. It was a while ago now, but I found that hilarious.
Yeah, he wasn't allowed to run because somebody called him out on it.
What do you mean?
Somebody called him out like he was. Remember, it was in the minor league game. He had that calf injury. Remember?
Yeah, well, I mean, he's rehabbing it. He can jog around the bases, but he basically just
he
looked at it for a second and then walked back to the dugout. Like it was hilarious.
I can't remember, but somebody called him out on it. So it was like, "Oh, don't disrespect the game like that." And he said, "No, I can't run right now. I'm just taking swings." That's how he explained it.
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't hate him.
How is it disrespecting the game to not run out a home run in a minor league game? Who is that person?
Yeah, minor league spring training is I can't think of anything.
Absurd thing I've ever heard in my entire life. I know it's the internet. I know the internet is ridiculous, but I just never cease to be amazed how people can perceive literally anything as an insult, as a disrespectful thing. I mean, I think it's
like the freaking NBA with like the taking a shot or laying the ball in
more
the last
disrespectful to celebrate a home run in spring training. I mean, I don't care either way, but I mean, it just makes no sense.
Well, that guy rounded the bases. What a dick.
It's just
just imagining that the other way.
Sorry for the tirade, but I had to point that out. That is
no, I like it. It was a little bit ridiculous how upset people get about like respecting the game and all that.
What were we talking about again?
Something about.
Oh, we were talking about the intentional walk rule.
No, yeah, I went back a couple stories right there. Yeah, it's probably enough there. One last story that I did want to mention that happened just a couple hours ago as of recording this is Garrett Richards left his first start of the season. Appeared to be injured, left with the trainer.
What a shocker. So shocking. Who could have predicted the guy who didn't get surgery and instead used stem cells wouldn't pull a Bartolo Colon and it would get hurt? I mean, I feel very validated.
Hey, Bartolo's still out there. He got a standing ovation from the Mets today. Good for him.
Bartolo definitely sacrificed something to some like evil pagan god. There's just no
why pagan?
So those are the ones that grant like wishes, like that's who you sacrifice to.
Is it the same people that
I would
Cardinals
know.
go?
I would know.
Is it the same people that the Cardinals sacrifice babies to?
1,000%.
Okay, I'm just making sure we're
the
on the same page.
Whole baseball conspiracy. I'm telling you.
That reference sure is a throwback right there, man.
Only the ultra fanatical listeners of this.
Yeah, not even Ray knows what the fuck we're talking about right now. Yeah. Sorry, Ray.
I just know the Cardinals are dirty cheaters anyway, so.
There we go. He close enough.
He gets the gist.
Cheating Cardinals.
Yeah. So that's. I think we'll wrap up that segment of the opening day headlines and stories and all that excitement. I mean, I could talk about this all day, but there's a lot more baseball to be played. We got, in fact, 159 games for most teams left to go. So we will be bringing you more news weekly here as we continue on. But for right now, it is time for our award predictions for this season. I wish this would be the time to drop some sort of soundbite right here, but now we are going to just jump into it right now.
I don't know.
I like it.
Did that help?
It added a little bit. We are going to go ahead and give our predictions for AL and NL MVP, Cy Young Award, Rookie of the Year. We're going to give you our World Series matchup prediction. I'm not going to give you the entire postseason picture. And we are also going to give our biggest surprise and biggest upset of this upcoming season. Are you guys ready? Who wants to go first?
Ready.
Raise your hand if you want to go first.
I'm raising my hand.
Wow, that is a loud hand raise right there. Go for it. You have raised your hand. You have spoken. Yeah.
I was kidding.
What? You can't
What?
just say you're joking. You have to
Take it back.
You have to go right now. That's how it works. Let's go ahead and start with AL MVP. How does that sound? Sound pretty good?
Okay, drum roll, please. I know this is really out there. I know this is really shocking. Please don't roast me too much for this. I understand. It's a real far-bowed pick. I have to go with Mike Trout.
Whoa.
I appreciate the drum roll throughout.
Wait,
Good.
Mike
Really
Trout?
like offbeat drum roll.
There's absolutely no way he wins the MVP. Like,
Yes,
just
Sam's
basic.
alter ego is going to win
You
the
clearly
MVP.
have not been paying attention the past 5 years. The pattern goes second place finish, first place finish, second place finish, first place finish, and he just won last year. So,
I think he's going to break the cycle.
really, that's probably the boldest prediction we've heard right here. Mike Trout, AL MVP. We have all the bold predictions right here. That was something.
Don't let too many people
we'll check
know.
in on that one, though.
They might just never talk to me again for saying something like that.
You're gonna
Just
get
keep it low.
so many comments about how bold a prediction that is, and they're just gonna absolutely roast you about it. Like, his on base percentage wasn't even 500 last year. Like, how can he win the MVP?
You gotta do for the podcast. What can I say?
All right, I guess there's entertainment value involved there too. Ray, give us your AL MVP.
I'm gonna have to agree and go with Mike Trout because as far as all the other candidates go, like, you can throw out a Mookie Betts, you can throw out, like, some people are touting Carlos Correa out there. Nobody carries their team quite like Mike Trout does in terms of, like, production, not wins, obviously.
Yeah, that's fair. I'd say Mike Trout is definitely the safe pick for AL MVP.
because everybody else has so much help. You look at Correa. He has help all around the diamond.
Okay, I have a problem with that. You can't take that away from a guy who just happens to be on a team that has other really good players too.
But like, I mean, so my second pick would be Manny Machado, because he can break out and have a really, really great statistical year, in my opinion. But
I'm gonna go ahead and say that Manny Machado's already broken out, but I kind of see what you're saying.
In terms of like a bona fide MVP year, but I mean, I'm not taking away from like the Carlos Correa's, Mookie Betts, and saying like, oh, they have other good guys in the team. It's just that they don't stand out at nearly as much as Mike Trout does from their respective teams.
All right, then. I'm going to give you a non-Mike Trout AL MVP pick. This one is actually a shocker. I would give myself a drum roll, but that would just be weird. I'm going to go ahead and say Francisco Lindor. Thank you. Francisco Lindor is my AL MVP for this upcoming season. That is my bold prediction for this season.
Do you honestly believe that, or you're just saying that?
I honestly believe that, because for one, he's going to play better defense than Mike Trout. Mike Trout's an
elite
elite defender.
You literally just shat on Farbode for drafting him early in the last podcast.
Well, that's fantasy baseball. Fantasy baseball is different.
I don't see how much different it could be, because
it's a stat.
I drafted Carlos Correa after Farbode, and I believe, and then you said, "Wow, Farbode, why didn't you take Correa over Lindor?"
This is a fantasy baseball dynasty league. I'm talking like
that is not consistent. I'm just telling you.
Yeah.
I'm saying that this is very different, because for one, you talk about defensive value. Francisco Lindor is about as good as you can get at shortstop. Number two, I do think he is as good an offensive season as he had last year. I think he has the poise, he has the ability to put it together to boost some of those numbers that maybe weren't so impressive, like the home run numbers weren't that impressive. I think he can elevate that enough to put himself in the middle of that MVP conversation and and end up taking that award home. I think he has that ability. He can be an elite. He already a pretty decent batting average guy. I think he can even take. I think he's in a good position to take even more steps to kind of boost that on base percentage a little bit, boost that home run total a little bit, just because he is a really talented player he's not fresh in the league anymore. He's been there. He knows what he's doing now, and I feel like now is as good a season as he could possibly have. Like, now is his. Can
I bet you if he'll win the MVP?
Primed for a peak season.
Can we make a bet?
It's bold, but it's
really
not
bold.
unreasonable. It's not unreasonable.
I have nothing against Francisco Lindor, and he's an incredibly fantastic young player. I just don't see how, if you weren't gonna pick Trout, he's number one. I mean, I'm not saying it's an impossible case to make. I just think, I don't know. I just don't see him as. I don't even see him as number two, I guess.
So I think Mookie Betts and Carlos Correa are probably most people's number two.
Or I think Machado's
I think Machado's
like these guys. Yeah. These guys are a little bit more obvious picks, and obviously, I don't know how this entire season is going to play out.
Nobody does.
Yeah, exactly. That's why this is a bold prediction. But I'm saying that Francisco Lindor is poised to have a season that can put him in the mix among those names. And, a lot of times that's all it takes to, putting your name up with those other names is that first step. Like, being in a position to do that. And then the stats will be what they are. They're not going to be... Those are impossible to determine down to the T. If Francisco Lindor happens to have the spikes that I think that he's capable of this season, then that's fine. It's understandable, because, a lot of these guys that are in contention had amazing seasons last year, the year before, and you're not kind of expecting a spike in their stats. They can be MVP candidates with the numbers they put up in previous seasons, potentially. But I do think Lindor has that.
I think the big question is, who's going to challenge Trout for actually beating him for the MVP? Because I don't see Trout having too much of a down year, if at all.
Also, Trout deserves his MVP. I'm just saying it now. Just for his career, he's the
career MVP.
I know it's a horrible reason to ever reward someone for something, but it's happened. It has happened before in sports. It's not an unheard of like rationale. People do get like career awarding MVPs, and while he's already has two, he's like he's still unbelievably underrated and unheralded, which I think is, not to go on a tangent, I think is all based on his personality. Personally, I think it's the only reason he doesn't get the respect he deserves. I think it's because he just doesn't have a superstar personality. So I don't know. I'm giving it to him. He deserves it. As long as he doesn't have a clearly down year, I really would be shocked if he doesn't win it.
And we saw in 2015 with Donaldson how he took it from Trout. Donaldson had an exceptional year on a really good team.
Yeah, that's
and
what
he
I'm
stood
saying.
out.
There's always
he stood out from the back. I don't think Lindor is the guy who can do that. I think a guy like Machado can do that. He can have an exceptional 30-40 homer year.
I don't think Lindor will have that, can pull off the offensive stats, but I mean it's possible.
Lindor needs to do a lot more because he's not a power hitter.
Yeah, exactly.
I think he can easily exceed his 15 home runs from last season by.
It's not about exceeding.
I would argue Encarnacion is could be a better MVP pick from the Indians as opposed to Lindor.
I mean, that's definitely possible too. Like the power numbers he puts up are insane. I mean, you know, it's harder for a guy like that because he doesn't have the defensive aspect of the game. But I do see what you're saying there with Encarnacion. You know, Lindor is not an awful pick. I understand the arguments for all of these guys above him, but I'm just saying he is definitely a player who could enter the mix this season statistically.
He's a great dark horse pick. He's a very
dark horse pick, but I feel like it's not unreasonable to say that
it feels a year early for me. I guess that's
the difference. I feel like this is year. I feel like that spike in his stats is gonna be enough to put him in that conversation, and whatever the final numbers end up being, obviously is gonna do the most to sway that opinion when it's all said and done.
I think he can finish third to Trout Machado. That's what I think of Lindor.
Okay, so it's not crazy to think that he's going to be in that conversation to finish, like, to be considered a top 3 or top 5 MVP player, right?
Yeah, it's
because that's what it takes for me at first. The final numbers will be what they be, but I look at the pool of players that I think will likely be in that category of like MVP. Nominees.
He could definitely be in the conversation. There's no doubt.
All right. I mean that was my actual bold pick, not a Mike Trout bold pick. But we have a lot more awards to get to. So, National League MVP.
Honestly, this one I really don't see anyone who's clear cut. There's clearly no Trout. I mean, I know Chris Bryant won the award last year. And I think he's still the safe pick to repeat, but I think I'm gonna go with Corey Seager personally. Or actually, no, wait, I take this back. I'm sorry. I know that was totally poorly and unprofessionally executed, but I'm actually gonna go. I think Bryce Harper is gonna bounce back from disappointing last year. He was a 2015 NL MVP. He's, in my opinion, the most talented player in the NL and the most talented player after Mike Trout. I think he's going to bounce back. I'm a believer. I'm on the Harper bandwagon.
Wow.
I think he's going to have a fantastic year. He was already hit his traditional home run on opening day. It's a great sign. I'm going with him. He did
last year, too, to be fair. Didn't he?
That's true. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. What I'm really trying, from an analytical point of view, when there's no clear-cut guy who's definitely above the rest of the pack, like Trout,
track record is a good thing to look at.
Straight talent. Well, I think Harper has a track record. Already won an MVP.
No, I said track record is a good thing to look at. Like, he's done it before.
Yeah, and he was hurt last year, and who knows how healthy he ever really was. He played. He has the work ethic. He's entertaining as anyone in the major leagues, which I know doesn't give you the MVP, but it certainly gives you the recognition that helps. And I think he's as safe a pick as anyone else. I'm not guaranteeing he wins, but I think he has it in him. And honestly, I think concerning what he was considered 2 to 4 years ago, I think he should have 2 MVPs by the end of this season for his career so far to be considered living up to the hype that he started with. If that makes sense, what I'm trying to express.
I think what you're trying to say is that he should win the MVP in a really
In my
complicated
opinion,
way.
I think he should win the MVP, but
Okay. I mean, you keep saying this guy should win the MVP, but like we're making predictions. It's 3 games into the season. Lock it out. Just
I'm
wanna
on the
make that
Bryce
clear.
Harper train.
All right, Ray, what you got?
I almost went with Corey Seager as well.
What's with the
I'm
almost
not-
Corey Seagers? Like, what's the point of you? Like,
We're kind of holding back.
you guys acknowledge. Like,
I'm kind
I
of
really want to see
comparing Corey Seager to Lindor at this point. Like, he could break it. Like, he finished 3rd last year. I don't know if he's gonna really separate himself from the field and actually win the MVP. My pick is Nolan Arenado, guy who arguably, if he was on a better team, probably could have won the MVP last year. But if he puts up numbers like he did, I think it's going to be hard to ignore his case. Even though it is in Colorado, he's still an all-around good player. And his defense is exceptional. His offense is amazing wherever he happens to be playing. And I think he's kind of, in the early on MVP predictions, people have almost forgot about how good he was last year.
Yeah, he's amazing player, and I'm not a voter. That I know that may be shocking to you guys, but I just don't think the voters like a guy who is on. Let's face it, he's not going to be on a playoff team, and in a very hitter friendly ballpark. They look at that and they detract what he's done.
And that is unfortunate because.
But that's just how it is. That's why I don't see him winning an MVP while the team is in the state that it is. It's just hard to do that on a team like that.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
I'm gonna double
100%.
down. I'm gonna double down on bold MVP picks right here. Trey Turner.
You and Trey Turner.
Dude, there's no way he wins the MVP.
No.
He's not even the best player on his team.
Why not though?
He's not. Can you?
Trey Turner's gonna be
triggered. I'm triggered.
What
I'm
kind
triggered.
of numbers? What kind of
I
numbers?
need a
both
safe
are.
space.
What kind of
I
numbers?
need a safe space.
What kind of numbers would he need to put up to be an MVP in your mind?
MVP numbers, which I don't think he's
What
going to
does-
put
what
up.
does that mean?
He's
Three-
going to be an above average player who has
300
good speed.
300 batting average, check. I can see that easily. 20 plus home run power, that one's probably the biggest stretch, but I think from what we've seen last season, that's not a crazy thing to suggest. 50 stolen bases, that would be very impressive, wouldn't it now? An all-star level shortstop defense, which is going to be a really interesting thing to watch going forward. I really like what I've seen so far. He was a good defensive shortstop before they moved into the outfield last year, and it seems like he's not really missed a beat. He seems like he's readjusted well to that position, and he definitely does have the defensive ability to put himself right up there with, other MVP caliber players defensively.
I think okay, here's my thing, and here's where I see you and I differ. I don't judge a guy who played the back half of last season. I don't project too much on him because
I could not agree more with that.
Pitchers are going to figure him out. I saw this first time with Yasiel Puig. Yasiel Puig took the league by storm.
Okay, Trey Turner had a way better start than Yasiel Puig. Yasiel Puig was really impressive, but it wasn't even.
Yeah, there was talks about
way
Yasiel Puig.
better. There's no way it was not way better.
There were talks about Yasiel Puig. They were trying to get him to be the MVP, and Yasiel Puig would have won the batting title if he had had enough at bats in that year.
All right.
Once pitchers figure guys out, and the same thing Gary Sanchez. Gary Sanchez, I think has better upside than Trey Turner in my opinion.
Wow, I think that's a really
guy.
bold statement right there too. Okay.
Pitchers figure hitters out eventually. These are major league pitchers. They're gonna figure this guy out. I can't see him winning the MVP after having
no way
a good
back
half of a rookie year.
Here's the reason I'm not as scared as I normally would be. For the most part, I'm not a crazy person who looks at 1 month of stats and says this guy's going to be great. But as a person who's followed this particular player for quite a while throughout his minor league development, the bat to ball skills are as good as they can be. Like as high as you can rank them. And I think, the strikeouts are probably going to be the only thing that he's going to have to really keep in check if he's realistically going to have a shot at this. I mean, Mike Trout was a top MVP finisher, finishing like top 5 in the league in strikeouts. So like it's possible, but I'm not saying that's
regardless of what Trey Turner does. I don't see in any way.
What do you mean regardless of what he does?
Just let me finish my point before it's destroyed. I don't see how in this universe this season you can tell me he's going to do more than Harper, Bryant, Arenado, or Seager. I just don't see, and I'm really surprised knowing you that you picked him over Seager too, honestly. And I think Turner's a great dark horse once again, like Lindor. But I really like Ray's point that the regression because pitchers figure him out, which happens a lot to sophomore hitters. I think Correa is a great example of that as well. Yeah. I don't think he's the best player on his team either. And maybe we just really disagree on Harper, but I don't see how you can put so much value in Trey Turner's half a season, and also just say Harper is a worse player now because of one injury-filled season. That's like just very reactionary.
I disagree with you.
I don't
on Harper enough to say that he's not clearly the best player on that team, but I do see what you're saying.
Win the MVP. Then how can he not win the MVP? You're saying a guy.
No. I'm saying I disagree with you enough on Bryce Harper to say that Bryce Harper is not definitively even the best player on his team. That's what
he's
I'm
not. He's not.
I could even make you a very outlandish case for Daniel Murphy.
Oh man, dude. I don't feel good.
I feel like I did that last year. Did I do that last year? No, I didn't. I made another really, really weird, bold prediction last year.
I just don't
I predicted David Ortiz would win the MVP or something, and that was just like ridiculous.
I mean,
DH to win the MVP.
You could honestly make the case. He was pretty insane last year.
I honestly want to look back and see what I predicted last year, because I feel like I do this every year, and it's really freaking fun because these discussions are fun.
This makes great conversation because you are the king of boldness, but I'm really struggling to rationalize a way to really say with confidence that Trey Turner could win the MVP this year. I really think that's really going out there.
Here's the easiest way to rationalize it. It wasn't entirely a fluke. Even if he puts up, like, let's say 80% of the numbers that he put up last year, those are MVP numbers. Okay.
I just don't see how he's better than these guys that we've talked about. It's not about you can still be in the MVP discussion, but I don't see how he's going to separate himself from the pack in any way this year. That would be. I would say that would be. That's the path to it. That would be unprecedented.
That's the path to it.
That would be Trout level when Trout first broke into the major leagues. That would be the only comparable example I can think of.
That would be awesome.
Do you think he's that good? Do you think he's going to be an all-time great?
A slightly different player profile, slightly less.
You think he's going to be one of the best players of his generation?
Sure, why not? Let's go all in on Trey Turner.
Well, that's what this is saying. Because
I'm not saying Mike Trout. Mike Trout is superior.
But that's what you have to do.
Mike Trout, in terms of power, is much more of a superior player. I don't see Trey Turner hitting 40 home runs in his career.
You have to do what Trout did. Is what I'm trying to say.
He doesn't have to hit 40 home. He doesn't have. He can win the MVP if he hits more than 20 home runs, hits like 320 with a decent on base percentage, and steals 50 plus bases, which is even conservative. 50 bases for like the fastest. He's Billy Hamilton with on base ability, basically. So he can steal as many bases. The sky's the limit there. So,
I think all these guys have to have disappointing years for that to happen personally.
You realize that now's the only time that I get to not be disappointed about really high upside players, and it just gets me really excited, right? You realize that? Because
I know
in most cases I'm going to be brought down to earth, and I'm going to be okay with that because I am every year. But I want to be excited about Trey Turner. I want him to be the MVP because I think he can.
I'm not saying Trey Turner can't eventually be an MVP caliber player, or he could even be in discussion this year. I'll be honest with you, I think we're running in circles now, but I just don't see him.
Okay, that's fair.
Truly being a guy in the discussion to
that is fair.
I don't see him being in the top 3 for voting. Basically, that's what I'm trying to say.
I think that's pretty good right there. We spent a lot of time talking about MVPs. It was a great discussion, but we should maybe try to run through some of these other ones a little bit faster than we did right there.
Well, don't make a dumb bold prediction.
Well,
We
you
won't
know what?
talk about
I will do what I want, and you'll be okay with it. That's what I have to say about that. Let's go ahead and give your Cy Young Award winners for the AL. Let's start.
I'm going to go with Chris Sale, personally. I think he puts it all together finally for a full year on a great team. And I think if he had a lot of wins, like Porcello got, that will aid him. And I'm confident in him this year.
Right?
I also like Chris Sale. Like you said, I think he's on a team that can really support him for a full year. He's going to be competitive throughout the year.
All right,
So,
we got the Sale sweep. I too have Chris Sale.
Good.
That's not a very good one.
Can we just not move on? I think that's really interesting.
I just want to mention one thing about, like, you're saying he's on a better team that can support him. One of the biggest differences is defense. White Sox really were not a very good defensive team by any metrics. Red Sox, very good defensive team on the other end.
Can I say we all chose to award the Cy Young to a guy who got so mad at jerseys that he cut up his own in the middle of the season out of nowhere? I just love baseball. I love how the best pitcher in a league could be that guy at the same time.
Yeah, I mean that's professional sports. There's stuff like that going on in all of them. Like it's hilarious. I love stories like this. Did you see Tom Brady at the Red Sox opening day and Gronk stole his jersey? And
I don't want to hear anything more about that stupid stolen jersey.
It was hilarious.
No, I hate Tom Brady.
Okay,
absolutely.
So I guess it's less.
Ooh, we got a problem. You forget where I go to school. You forget where I go to school.
Different podcast.
Oh,
We can put on the boxing gloves and fight later. But
the fact that it was an FBI thing and that was such a big deal, just
you're 100% right. No,
me the wrong way.
No, you're right. It was
be a way bigger fish to fry in this country.
Completely thrown out of proportion beyond belief. You're totally right. That's that.
All right then. NL Cy Young. I feel like we're gonna have a similar outcome here.
Kershaw, I think, really can. If he has 3 more of these seasons, that's not like. I'm not saying it's guaranteed or anything, but if he can stay healthy for 3 more years at the pace that he's at, which is just unbelievably ridiculous pace, I think you'd honestly start to have serious discussions. Is he the greatest pitcher of all time? Because he truly is the stalwart of our generation. And
the what?
The stalwart. That's a word.
My vocabulary is very weak, I guess.
Sorry, and sorry if that Michigan vocab was a bit much for you. That was uncalled for. I apologize.
I'm okay.
But I mean, he's really creeping up on Koufax's legacy as the best lefty of all time. If not, if he hasn't already surpassed it, and I really hope this guy the injury bug is behind him, and he gives us, as many more just ridiculous and historically great years of dominance like he has. I just love watching him. He's absurd.
You mean second best behind Bartolo Colon, right? Who's going to pitch till he's 70?
You're right. You're my mistake.
Okay, good. I'm just making sure. Ray, what you got?
Jake Arrieta. No, just kidding. It's Kershaw. How can you pick against them? I mean, you look at the last 2 years with Arrieta and Hendricks winning the MVPs. Or, sorry, not MVPs, Cy Youngs. Kershaw, both those years, had Cy Young caliber years, and he was beaten out by exceptional years. So, like I said, if Kershaw continues his production and nobody storms in and has another sub-2 ERA on another team to beat him, he's going to get his 4th Cy Young. And, I mean, like you said, he's arguably one of the greatest pitchers of all time already, and then to add to, like I said, even just 3 years down the line, having numbers even similar to what he's had, I think it's like 3 or 4, maybe even 5 straight years of a whip under 1. That is ridiculous for a starter.
Yeah, I mean, the difference last year even was he was so far ahead of the pack in every way possible. He was just injured and missed enough time to where the counting numbers just weren't there for him. But
no. Here's this.
How far ahead of the pack he was absolutely disgusting last year.
More wins than walks last year.
That's ridiculous.
How
oh
about
my
that?
god! Holy shit!
Like it's this.
Wow.
You could Kershaw facts are like really close to Barry Bonds facts at this point, basically. Like
yeah, but Kershaw's not juicing.
Like last year, it took so freaking long for any other pitchers in the National League to even get remotely close to like putting up the counting numbers he had after he got injured. Like he had like a month and a half of he was like a month and a half ahead in terms of counting numbers over every other pitcher. It was insane.
He's so good that
Kershaw's
he pitches as a dominant pitcher from 2 fucking release points in the same like at bats. Have you guys seen that?
Yeah, I've seen it. It's crazy. He's like well, I think was it Rich Hill? Like they both do that.
That's who we got it from.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. He's just like playing around with it at this point.
Like, and he added a changeup. He threw it against the Padres.
Well, yeah.
Throws it 85. Could you imagine Kershaw with a
straight
straight slow pitch? That is ridiculous.
I want to see Kershaw throw an eephus in a game. I want to see it.
That's his curveball.
No, I want to see a true eephus. I want to see a true eephus.
I think he threw one time.
60 miles an hour. Anything else?
I think he threw one time, and the guy swung and missed.
Well, find me a video of it, and I will be very impressed.
I'm gonna try. I won't guarantee it, but I kind of remember him throwing kind of an eephus.
All right, that sounds good. If you find that video, I will put it in the link below for anybody else to see. All right, Rookie of the Year. Let's do it. Probably gonna have a sweep here too. Right?
Yeah, in the AL, it's definitely shit. I totally blanked out. Sorry, I spaced out for a second. My apologies. Who the fuck did I? Oh my god, I'm sorry. It's clearly Andrew Benintendi for me. Sorry, I totally forgot his name. I don't know why. I was really unprofessional once again. I'm really on a roll here. Just a great young player. Does it all well. I don't really think he has any competition, to be honest. It's not like a particularly strong AL rookie season either. Unless Moncada gets promoted really early and just destroys the field. I think he's going to be the better player career-wise, but I just don't think it's going to work out in his favor just in terms of playing time.
He's probably also going to be the way better player fantasy-wise. Moncada is.
Yeah, I just don't think he'll end up with the counting stats in the long run this season. I'm going to go with I think Benintendi as in the bag, though. I mean,
this is like close to how favored Seager was last year, basically.
Yeah, I don't love him personally. I'm not saying he's like not a great player. I don't like see quite that large of a ceiling, if that makes sense. I'm just not sure how truly like. I mean, he's still gonna be a great career. I just don't know how high his potential truly is. But I think he should have the AL Rookie of the Year in the bag personally.
Okay, Ray.
Yeah, I gotta go with Benintendi just for the reason I said he doesn't really have any major competition, and I mean last year's Seager.
You guys are acting like oh yeah, like I guess it's him. His competition just so weak. Like this guy is really freaking good.
No, he is a really good player, but I mean, like we talked about, like Seager last year. Seager didn't have much competition, but he was still an exceptional player. Benintendi isn't going to be as good as Seager. He's still going to be well above average, but bottom line, he is going to be the Rookie of the Year, and there's really nobody else you can talk about unless Moncada shocks the world this year.
Man, I'm just like imagining a scenario right now where Benintendi finishes top 3 MVP voting like Seager did last year. It seems utterly impossible, but could you imagine how crazy that would be? Yeah, Benintendi.
That'd be great. 3
sweeps in a row, guys. We're doing good work here. Yeah, National League and Rookie of the Year. Bleh. Yeah, go for it.
Once again, I'm gonna go with not once again because obviously
once again
that makes no sense.
As I do every year.
This one I think is really, really difficult. I don't see this as I think we might have the same answer, all of us, but I don't think this is nearly as clear cut. I'm with Dansby Swanson. He seems like the most talented NL rookie who's probably gonna have, play a whole season. If that makes sense, but I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if he doesn't win it.
I still believe it'll be Shelby Miller.
I think Josh Bell is a low key kind of dark horse if he can get in the majors quick enough and get enough playing time.
Right now, he's just not getting.
Oh, he's up. I didn't realize they brought him to the major league roster. That's my mistake. I'm being uninformed. I think he is the biggest competition right now. I think Alex Reyes probably could have been a great choice here if he didn't get hurt. So, but I think Swanson's probably the safest pick.
Yeah, a lot of the articles I've read are going with Swanson. The other names out there, Hunter Renfroe on the
I like that.
Padres.
Is he your pick?
No, Swanson is.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
No, we're mentioning other guys. I'm just looking at a list right here. Yeah, Dansby, he's shown what he can do without how do I say this? He hasn't completely broken out yet. So I think he's definitely gonna be a solid enough player to win Rookie of the Year this year.
Yeah. I actually do have Hunter Renfroe as my NL Rookie of the Year. Yeah. You mentioned him. You stole a little bit of the thunder there by giving him the shout out right there. But yeah, he's really high power potential guy. He hit a home run tonight. I'm not going to say that it's going to change my opinion in any way, but I do think the ceiling is as high as anybody with this guy. He could definitely put up. Throughout the course of a whole season, it's hard to project any rookies to 30 home runs, but if any rookies are, it's going to be him. So that's
I would
my
agree
argument right there. All right.
Do you have any idea how that ballpark's going to play this year? I have no idea.
It's a pretty neutral ballpark, even last year.
Okay.
It's not the pitcher friendly ballpark.
They're in their new ballpark.
They always thought. Not new ballpark, but modified fences in the last couple of years. But yeah, the ballpark's not really going to factor at all. Especially with his monster power, he can hit some balls way up on that.
Oh yeah,
Supplyco building out there in left field. Yeah. So we got.
I was talking about Renfroe. I'm an idiot.
We got a. Oh yeah. We got a couple.
I was thinking Swanson. I was thinking Swanson. That was my bad.
Oh, in the new ballpark, yeah. No, I have no idea.
Ballpark.
I have no idea actually. I haven't. They start on the road, which is kind of weird. Wouldn't you want the new ballpark team to start at home? I don't know.
Yeah. They opened it up like an exhibition game, which was stupid.
I mean, it's just an exhibition game. They just wanted people to get hype. Yeah. World Series matchups. Let's do that real quick.
I know this is just really boring, but a rematch seems very, very likely. I would say, to me, there's two. That's maybe my pick, but just to make this more. To add some flavor and not just be boring, I do think there are two teams in each league that also have a very good chance. I think the Dodgers and the Nationals could both go to the World Series. I think the Cubs are better than both those teams as the rosters currently stand, but I think they have a chance. You can never count out either of those teams' aces, and I think they both have the offenses and the defense to go on a run. They've both kind of been, I would say, their current cores have kind of underperformed in the playoffs, I would say generally. I know the Dodgers made the NLCS last year, but previously they had kind of a lot of early exits, and the Nationals obviously are pretty much infamous at this point for not translating regular season success to the postseason. But I think there's a reasonable chance that the Cubs. Who knows? There could be an injury here, injury there. I think in the AL, the Astros, I think, don't have the experience yet, but they have the talent, especially if McCullers becomes a top-line rotation player. I would say if they have him as their ace, they could go very far. They're a young team. Young teams seem to have a lot of playoff success in the AL recently. It's not totally out of the stretch. Then I think the Red Sox are a complete juggernaut, and there's a very also reasonable chance that they just steamroll their way all the way to a championship this year. Their roster is just honestly absurd, and they still have to prove it. I think that their core works together, but the talent is definitely there. I think you could definitely argue they're the best team in baseball, up and overall, as a sum of their parts.
All right, yeah, I like pretty much every element of the argument. You did a very thorough job discussing even some of the teams you didn't have in there. I was not really expecting that, but that was pretty good. Ray, who you got?
So I'll start off by saying the World Series is going to be between two of these four teams. It's going to be the Red Sox or the Indians out of the AL, and the Cubs or the Dodgers out of the NL. Like I said, the Nationals, I don't see them making that step out of what they've done the past few years. And the Red Sox and Indians are just too good for the rest of the teams in the AL, in my opinion. I mean, in terms of an actual matchup, I'm gonna just go bias and say the Dodgers versus Indians. But it's so unpredictable. The only reason I say this is because I don't think the Cubs are as dominant as they were last year, which I don't think any of us expect they will be. So I think the Dodgers have made improvements and they can definitely reach the World Series. And then I think the Indians just have, when you take your same core and then you replace Mike Napoli, who hit 34 home runs, with Edwin Encarnacion, I think you're going to go back to the World Series.
Yeah, I mean, I like that too. I also have the Indians in the mix. I think, I can't say enough about them and how complete of a team I think they are. And, you talk about a guy like Terry Francona leading the way there. I like their chances a lot, but I'm going to get a little bit bold now. So don't get upset with me. I'm going to go ahead and say the Mets are going to meet them in the World Series. And it's really hard because they're not a superior team in almost every way. But in terms of playoff construction, Noah Syndergaard, they have the guy. And Jacob deGrom, they arguably have two of the guys. And they have decent guys. Like, we don't know what Matt Harvey and Zach Wheeler and Steven Matz are going to be the rest of the season, really. But they have guys to fill in. We've seen postseasons dominated by two dominant pitchers, right? Right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
No, you're 100% right.
Yeah. Here's the thing.
The bullpen is not as bad as people are saying. Addison Reed is a very good relief pitcher. Yours Familia is a really good closer, despite, obviously against the Royals didn't have the kind of success you wanted in that one postseason. But really, in a really tight situation, really high-stakes situation, he has about as good as stuff as any, like 97 with movement, like that kind of crazy ability. I like the pitching construction they have. The lineup does have enough in terms of experience, especially, but it has enough to support that pitching, I think, in a postseason format. So you can say what you want, but I'm just saying the playoffs are not all about, like, it requires a little bit of luck, it requires a hot hand going into the playoffs, and it requires a good enough roster construction to succeed in the playoffs, and I think they have it. They have enough. And I think if we can see Noah Syndergaard in a full series and not just the wild card game, which he was fantastic in, I think that's going to be a game changer for him, for the Mets. So there you go. I think they can, again, two pitchers in the postseason. It's kind of a formula that we've been seeing a lot in recent years.
But here's the thing. They got to go through the Dodgers and the Cubs, which they did 2 years ago. But it's a much improved Dodgers and Cubs teams, and they had during that postseason.
I don't know if the Cubs are much improved.
Yeah, I mean, it's a different sort of Cubs team, I guess, in terms of
I don't know how improved the Dodgers are even.
I think Don Mattingly is out. That is a huge improvement, believe me.
He was out last season.
I know, but that's why they almost went to the World Series, because he couldn't screw it up.
They almost went. Okay, great. I'm just saying, in terms of playoff construction, all those teams are there. I'm saying I think the Mets will get to the World Series.
I don't even know if the Mets can win their division.
They don't have to win their division. They can get the wild card. I'm not saying they're not going. That's probably even more likely, just in terms of like a full season context team. They look like a wild card team more so than division winners.
Yeah,
but
I don't see anybody on that Mets team having a Daniel Murphy type postseason, which propelled them to that World Series.
Even though Daniel Murphy invented the Daniel Murphy postseason with the Mets.
But it's their team is kind of the same makeup as 2 years ago, and it took that. And like you said, it's unpredictable, but I just can't see anybody beating both the Dodgers and the Cubs.
All right, that's fair. But those are my predictions. Let's really quick give the last biggest surprise and biggest upset of this season. Just give them both at the same time. Rudy?
These are. I know it's a little late to ask this, but did we mean players with this? I think that's what I thought.
You know what? I will give you free reign. I was thinking players, but you know what? If you have anything else, that's
we weren't doing team. Okay, I'm just making sure. So
it doesn't matter.
I'm going with Jock Peterson as my surprise breakout player. I think he's gonna finally put it together. He's always had the power. He's always had the physical abilities.
The on-base percentage, too.
And I think he's finally kind of... Yeah, I think he's good, you know. I think he can be a really just great... He's a good fielder, right? I could be wrong.
Oh, he's a really good outfielder, yeah.
So, I honestly think he's a guy who gets a lot of love, who I actually think he's better than is, like, George Springer. And I think he's going to have a better year than him. I think he could hit 30 home runs, have a OBP... close to 400 and in the 260s. I think you're gonna have a really great year, and finally, I think kind of take what his hype was 2 years ago when he was just just smashing the ball, but not really much else offensively, and kind of finally put that together. I also like to point out Will Myers and Stanton. I think Will Myers just doesn't get a lot of love, and then Stanton, I think, is going to have a healthy beast year this year.
Healthy beast year. Like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ray, who you got? Oh, did you say your most disappointing player?
I think Porcello is going to regress 100%.
That was a pretty easy one for you there.
Biggest surprise. You said we had free reign?
Yeah.
In terms of
players or whatever.
Okay. I think Braves will be the biggest surprise team. I'm not saying they're gonna make the playoffs. Don't quote me on that. But I think they quietly had a solid offseason. They added good veteran pieces who can still play. Cologne through. You still have Freddie Freeman there. Dansby Swanson are our projected rookie of the year. 2 out of 3 of us, and you have Brandon Phillips helping them out in the middle infield. I think they've built a solid team, and they're going to win more than I think people expect
over under 80
they would.
Give it to me straight.
I'll say over, but I'll say 81. It's not a high over.
You know what? That is a definitive over, and I like it.
Biggest disappointment. I'm trying to think. That one's hard for me.
Way to be prepared.
We're all about preparation here. I'm gonna say. I mean, not like he's because he's gonna throw up solid numbers.
I agree with that 100%.
You cut out for me.
Jake Arrieta.
I agree with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Not saying he's gonna have a horrible year, but he's gonna be at best a high 2 ERA pitcher. I think he'll probably be somewhere in the low 3s, which is respectable. But he's not the world beater he was in 2015.
That's 100% accurate, I would say.
That's fair. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say my biggest surprise of the season is going to be Daniel Norris of the Tigers, which is a little bit interesting because it's kind of hard to determine for a guy like this at what point is he a surprise, because he was a prospect a while ago, did not really succeed at the big league level, dealt with a lot of, weird injury type things, and, it was really a rough few years for a guy like this. But he's here now. He's in the rotation. I think he has a chance to breathe, has a chance to put up solid numbers. He doesn't have to be top prospect Daniel Norris to be a surprise for a lot of people, I think.
I think he's definitely on the cusp. I agree with that.
Yeah.
For a second,
what?
Like I said, Derek Norris is like, what the hell?
Yeah, so
I would have gone there. I was like, oh,
that would be a little bit different. I'm not that bold.
Yeah.
Come on. Give me some credit.
Pretty close.
Yeah. And I'm gonna go ahead and say this is gonna shock you guys probably. My biggest disappointment of the season is gonna be Jose Altuve.
I like that. That's a really interesting one.
I mean,
and I'm not,
it's definitely not the most outlandish thing you said tonight.
It's disappointment from an MVP caliber player. Like that's even if he's a solid second baseman, he's going to be a disappointment in a lot of people's eyes if he's not, top 3 or top 5 MVP voting, because that's where he's been. I think a lot of that is going to have to do with, I think he is going to run less than he did last year. And part of that has to do with lineup construction, I think. I think the power was a touch bit fluky. I think he still has, 15 home run power. But, it's not going to be what it was last year. And I just think it's really hard to maintain a batting average as high as he had. And, it's going to be a pretty good batting average. He's a really skilled hitter. Skills will take you far enough, even if you have stretches of the season where you slump. But I don't think it's going to be quite as good as we're used to. And that's my analysis there. I really love Jose Altuve still. Not going to argue about that. But I'm going to go ahead and say that he's probably going to be my disappointment this season.
That's completely reasonable, I'd actually say. He definitely feels like a guy who just might have peaked, and I don't think anyone's going to say it's kind of a poor year, but, I mean, some guys just finally start declining. It's inevitable.
Well,
I'm not saying it's necessarily going to be a decline, because he's not an old guy. I'm just saying I think this season there's a lot of pieces that seem like they're not going to add up to what people want.
No, that's what I'm saying, but I'm...
Hello? You cut out for me.
Saying that's almost kind of saying...
You cut out, entirely there. I couldn't hear any of that.
Why am I...
I don't know.
Okay.
I think that means it's a pretty good time to wrap up, though, because we did go on for quite a while, and we got a lot of really good conversations, and I liked what we had going on today. Any final thoughts going forward the next week? Any predictions? Any additional bold predictions that you have for us? I think both you guys are really cutting out for me now. Hello?
I agree with quite a bit.
I think both of you guys are really...
I hear you.
You can hear me? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the show.
All right.
Screw final thoughts. I'm sure they were great anyway. But yeah, as I mentioned before, we're going to try to turn out episodes weekly now that baseball season is rolling again, and we are hopefully going to be adding a second weekly fantasy-focused podcast. And I really want to get that going as soon as next week. And be on the lookout for that if you are into the fantasy baseball discussion. I know for sure that I am. And that will likely be our schedule for the season. Hopefully, if all goes as planned, sometime in the beginning of the week, we'd have a fantasy podcast. And near the end of the week, we'd have our traditional podcast where we do our thing. So, yeah, that is it for today. As always, please leave us any feedback you have. It would be awesome and very much appreciated. Leave comments down below. Follow us on Twitter at WPB_podcast. Let us know what you think there. Check out our website. Link for that is down below as well. Any other links that you can contact us with are also in the description. Thank you again for joining us. We do not have Farbode today, so if either of you both of you guys still there, by the way? Just wondering, because I know you guys have been cutting out, but you're very quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. Oh, okay. Yeah, that is it for today. Thank you for joining us. Tune in next time. As always, Rudy.
Peace.